Great speech, man.
So much better than the Gekko speech, I think.
Right? It is.
But
It totally is.
in terms of articulating complex economic ideas in a very tangible, layman-friendly way,
But even better, it's not cartoonish. Like in Wall
no.
Street, the CEO looks like a little criminal, like a
Yeah.
little crony bureaucrat who's sucking the stockholders dry. Hello and welcome to Haman Nature. I am Adam Haman, and with me is my buddy Charles Melchin. How you doing, good sir?
Very well. How about yourself?
I am lovely, and I'm in a mood to think about the economy and money and the stock market and getting rich. Because today we are going to talk about two movies I enjoyed a whole lot over the years. One is called Wall Street, very famous, an Oliver Stone film featuring Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen, and the other is much less known, a movie starring Danny DeVito called Other People's Money. But they both talk about corporate takeovers for the most part. You have seen both of these films?
Yes. At your behest,
Yes.
at rightful behest too.
So I want to get into the either the backdrop or the main thrust of both of these movies, the stock market and the market for corporate control. But before we dive in, I really enjoyed both of these movies, even though they're both arguably flawed. What was your general sense?
Um, well, obviously, like it's easy to see how the two are easy to pair together. They came out only 4 years apart.
Yep.
With other people's money coming out 4 years after Wall Street, and with Wall Street's success, maybe that sort of helps to ensure other people's money got made. Um, my general thoughts: I enjoy the subject matter more than I think most people would. I, I mean, just straight off, I prefer other people's money. For all the accolades and success that Wall Street has had, other people's money. I look forward to discussing the whys, but I think it's superior both from an economics perspective and in terms of just art.
Yep. I on the whole agree with you. We'll get into the details later. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about, like I said, either the backdrop or the main subject matter of these films, and that is the problem endemic of a corporation, which is how do these disparate, um, all spread out, diluted, numerous shareholders, owners of the company, manage or force the principals who are supposedly acting on their best interests, the management of the company, how do they force them to do the right thing? How do you align the interests of
Mm,
management with stockholder? It's not an obvious. It's a problem with not obvious solutions.
well, and it's also a sort of a bit of an artificial problem that is derived from like how the state almost demands corporations be organized in the United States, and it seems most of the world. I don't know that in a truly free market we'd have so much, I don't know, bureaucratic mess when it comes to how these corporations operate.
Yeah, that's for sure, and less cronyism. But I still think in Ancapistan you would have a situation where you have millions of owners, and you obviously are going to have a tiny group of managers. And how do you get I mean, they talk about it in economics textbooks. It's the principal agent problem. And it can exist in any one of a bunch of structures, but this one critically. I was just thinking um, about the various ways you could solve the problem or try to. You could rely on the board of directors, which, as you say, is a construction of the state, I think. But still, they exist and they sit over the management, and you could rely on them to micromanage decisions, hire and fire liberally. But there's problems with that. It kicks the can down the road. It's also cumbersome. And then, how do you get the board of directors to act in the stockholders' interest? And then you could do what they're doing more and more and more in the last handful of years, is tying management's compensation not to salary, but to shares of stock, either directly or in the form of options. And then you can stagger that out over time as far as vesting goes to try and make sure that the interests of management are long term rather than short term, which is more in the nature of a stockholder. There's also things such as clawback provisions in the case of malfeasance or bad action of some kind, where the company can actually take back compensation already given. But the last one, and this is not an exhaustive list, I was just scribbling, is this market for corporate control, by which an outside actor, stock analyst, a studier of the fundamentals of some business or some industry, can look at the stock price and then glance up at the company and just, even if it's just adding up the assets owned by the company, if the stock price is lower than that, well, then management is screwing the stockholders and there's an arbitrage available. I'll just buy up this stock or enough of it to gain control and fix the problem and make a bunch of money, which is what both of these protagonists or villains, depending on how you look at it, are what they're up to in these films.
And there's certainly ways to, if it's even a problem, right? And I'm not sure that that necessarily is, but as Gordon Gekko points out in his, he put the, what is it, 33 vice presidents between the entire board
Yeah.
for the company that he's looking to take over. They have, what's he say, like 3%? They hold 3% of the stock amongst all of them, or less than 5%, some figure like that. But like, I always find it weird when the board members themselves have so little invested in the company. I know that there's some major, huge companies out there right now who their boards are similar. They're just not invested in the company that they operate. And as if I was a stockholder in that company, I'd be wondering why. Why aren't you putting more of your acquired wealth in this, anticipating its growth? Because
Yeah,
there's no skin in the game at that point.
right, in that speech, I don't know if he was talking about the board of directors or their 30 some vice
Yeah,
presidents in charge of wasting money, clearly. But either way, yeah, I think it's a mistake. If you don't have, you have to get them invested in hopefully the long term value of the company. And yeah, getting compensation in the form of stock. And I think these days it is up to like 80 or 90% in most big, well run companies that compensation isn't cash, it's stock
yeah.
options and various things.
When I suspect that there's tax reasons for that as well.
Oh, yeah, of course. And it gives the person control
But
over when they receive, when this money is taxable. I think. Yeah, it has to be. Um, so, what Gordon Gekko and Danny DeVito, Larry the Liquidator, he's called in the movie, what they're doing is corporate raiding, which was pretty big in the 70s and 80s. And what is done is the raider buys up a large percentage of the company and also lobbies other large voting blocks to get their proxy, um, to get the voting rights to take the company over or pressure management into doing changes that are perceived by the raider as being profit maximizing, which could be some sort of restructuring, financial or operational, replacing management almost always, maybe expanding, maybe downsizing. And in the case of these two raiders in the film, they're just aiming at complete liquidation of the company and selling off the assets because it's worth more dead than alive. Um, and there's various things a company's management can do to forestall a corporate raider, and they're all pretty awful. Things like leveraging up the company with debt so that it's no longer attractive,
yeah,
stripping down the working capital, the cash on hand, so that it's not attractive, which can be harmful to the operation of the company. Putting in poison pills, that's a nasty one, where as soon as one
Mm.
entity, person or entity, acquires a specific percentage of the company, an automatic dilution process is triggered, um, such that all of a sudden they don't own as much of the company as they think they do. And then the most self-serving one is this golden parachute thing, where you just write into the contracts of all management that if they get fired for change of ownership, they get to bail out with this golden parachute full of all sorts of money and goodies.
All of these seem like spectacular ways of distorting the actual value of your stock
For
in
sure.
your company.
Yeah. Um, and then I don't know how much our listeners know about the history of it. I guess it depends. But when I was thinking back, the only name of corporate raider that I could remember was Carl Icahn.
Mhm.
He seemed to be like the biggest one. He famously levered himself up and then took over TWA, the airline, and then sold off the planes and routes and gates and whatnot for to pay off the debt he incurred, which made the headlines. And then the other name that I remember is Michael Melchin for running the investment bank that gave us or popularized junk bonds, these high yield, high risk investment tools, perfect for this sort of an operation. And also, I can't believe he did this, but apparently he had investors in these things called blind pools where they were just invested in a thing and they had no idea what it was necessarily. It's like, I'm going to do some stuff with your money and good luck to you. so so they'd find out they were involved in some corporate takeover and like, oh, that's interesting. How do we do, boss? So that was a fascinating thing to read about. And then he went to jail for, I don't know if that specific practice, but the SEC gave him uh, you know a bunch of worse than citations.
All right, right. Very sternly worded letters.
Yeah.
Although in that case, with the blind groups, why would that be against any rules?
I wouldn't unless it was disclosure problem or something. Like they thought
Uh,
they were buying, some index fund, and I don't know.
right. The Carl Icahn versus TWA episode. I don't know if it seems like it was played quite a bit of inspiration, especially with Wall Street, considering the dynamics at play there. And I believe Oliver Stone specifically took inspiration from him as well as a couple other corporate raiders when crafting the character of Gordon Gekko.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Um, and so like yeah, with there being an airline and all that, now there's a size and scale issue when it comes to TWA versus the company that he was pursuing in Wall Street.
Blue Star.
But
Yeah.
yeah, um, but it seems like there's a pretty good foundation when it comes to other people's money as well. Looking at the 80s was super ripe with these mergers and acquisitions that you could almost take from any of a dozen different
Yeah.
organizations that, and it seemed especially, I don't know, in both of the movies to discuss, like they bring up Japan quite a bit. And the 80s, there was, I mean, same thing with Die Hard, right? But there's
Yep.
just like, there's this preoccupation with what Japan has been doing and like coming around buying everything up sort of thing. And they almost act as a savior in other people's money. Um, but, oh my goodness, where was I going? Oh, right. So like suddenly Japan, yeah. Suddenly Japan, like Asia, suddenly became a manufacturing powerhouse in a way that they previously were just absent from that game, and so it seems like it shook up like a lot of the American industrial base now that they're being challenged. And if you can make wire and cable or airplanes in Japan for 70% of the price and just as good a quality as what they're making in the United States. Suddenly, what's market viable here really needs to be called into question. And so that's where I think these core raiders played a very useful role in sort of cleaning out the inefficiencies within our market.
Yeah, that's for sure right. As you were speaking, I was thinking of the movie Gung Ho with Michael Keaton. I assume it must have been in the 80s, um, where he works for an American auto company that's uh,
Yeah.
needs to learn a lesson from how the Japanese do things, and
Right.
hilarity ensues. But it's
Sure.
definitely the case that once we started to get some competition from not just cheaper labor, but people who just weren't so bloated with whatever Americans think, is the proper way to run a business in the 40s and 50s and 60s and whatever.
Yes. When the rest of the industrialized world was still recovering from being turned into dust, and we could sort of operate with as much inefficiency as we want because we were the only game in town when it came
Right.
to machining and manufacturing.
Yeah, that's for sure. Um, so I guess let's dive into these movies in more detail. Um, I saw Wall Street when it came out. Um,
And you've
it's
watched it since.
yeah, I've
Okay.
seen it a handful of times. Yeah,
Oh, one question before we start. So your degree's in finance.
yeah. I was just about to say I was
Okay.
leaning towards electrical engineering or something like that. I had the foolish idea that I wanted to build something, but then, like Wall Street is one of those movies that made me think, hey, maybe there's this other thing.
So you got Wall Street Wall Street recruited you into the finance game.
Charles, I am a proper gullible idiot. Tom Cruise and Top Gun talked
Right.
me into joining the Navy. No joke. I mean, there were other factors, but that was one. And then, yeah, Michael Douglas and Gordon Gekko uh, drew me towards finance. And then I ended
Inter
up playing poker for a living. So go
right.
figure. Oh,
Yeah.
Rounders did come out. There's that.
Yeah, but that was after you were already well into the
I was
game,
already started. Yeah.
right? Oh, good, thank goodness. But in finance, did they reference either the while you were getting your degree, did any of your professors ever reference either of these?
Not that I remember.
Okay.
And like in the Wall Street movie, the dialogue is kind of half retarded. Like sometimes they just throw words in there that are
Yes.
financial terms that just
Yeah.
don't relate to what's happening.
Mhm.
So maybe they wouldn't for that reason.
But
Also,
it
there's a
sounds really impressive. Yeah.
uh, but some of the things in there are right. Like the concept of green mail is used
Right.
correctly in both films as
Mhm.
a bribe by management to just pay off the corporate raider.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about other people's money is Danny DeVito is just offended by the notion. Um,
Well,
we'll
he makes a
save,
counteroffer.
but but what was great is he just is legit offended. I will get into this movie more later, but I mean, they try and build this guy up as a complete
Mhm.
jackass, Gordon Gekko, but shorter and uglier and worse somehow, more hedonistic, if that's possible. But he was just offended. He literally said the stockholders get screwed with green mail. So what are you doing? And they also have the concept of a white knight displayed quite well in Wall Street in the personage of the rich British person
Yeah.
who's
Sir
feuding
whatever, Wilder or something like that.
exactly who's feuding, I guess, over the decades with Gecko because they're
Yeah.
always getting in each other's business and making the deals more expensive or trying to poach one from another. So those things were done well. Um, and it's funny. I mean, we're going to play this famous "Greed is Good" speech that Gordon Gekko delivers. But he's such a mixed bag because that speech is pretty good. It's sort of interesting. At the end of it, Gekko pulls a face, or Michael Douglas does,
Right.
uh, to his cronies, Bud Fox included, sort of making it out like the character doesn't believe the thing that he just said about saving, the malfeasance of the management and saving the company, like it was just an act, which sort of makes sense because the rest of the movie he's engaged in shady behavior for sure.
Right.
Um, which brings me to, how do you feel about the crime of insider trading, my
It's
friend?
silly.
Should it be? Should it not
Yeah.
be?
No, I'm with Walter Block on this one. Like, I don't understand why insider trading is against certainly in Capistan, like, it's not fraud. you're not doing direct harm to anybody, and if you're gonna define it as harm, suddenly you're opening up you're changing that definition where it can be used too broadly. And so I like the idea of insider trading. I think you're gonna get more accurate, stock prices, more accurate, signals throughout the market if you allow for it and just accept it as part of the industry.
Yeah, I agree completely. What's that Kurt Vonnegut novel where they hamstring the talents of people? They make
I
strong people wear weights. They make
Oh,
hair.
here's some Bergeron.
Yeah,
Yeah,
insider trading laws are like that. You're too smart.
sure.
We
Yes,
gotta hamstring you. The only place where you'd want this behavior curtailed, you can handle contractually. You know,
sure.
if management is caught, selling or giving away secrets or acting even upon secrets, that can be a contractual matter, and you have a tort against that person or something. But that's not something that government needs to, be policing
Well, there'd also be the reputational cost that comes along with something
for
like that.
sure.
If
Yeah,
you're going out of your way as someone who's supposed to have a fiduciary duty to your stockholders, and you're kind of screwing them over by preemptively acting on like limited information without telling the rest of your stockholders, I don't think people are going to be super eager to have you in their leadership team going forward, either that organization or another.
Um, another of the very bad things that Gordon Gekko does in that film, Wall Street, um, is engaging in these, what would you call them, pump and dump schemes to manipulate the price, where he calls the fictitious paper and says, what is it, Blue Horseshoe loves Anacott steel, and the
Yeah.
whole point of that is, I mean, when I saw that scene, I'm thinking of Jim Cramer. Like, there's no goddamn way that guy with his track record, he wasn't finding some way to, buy these stocks that he's about to pump the next day on air surreptitiously, and then, get that blip that you'd get from, ooh, new thing, smart people say to buy, and then just selling it a couple days later.
It can't possibly be like it's okay. So in a lot of ways, Wall Street is a caricature.
Yes.
And that's certainly one of them, right? Like there's this wild exaggeration of how markets react to things like that.
Yeah.
First off, if you're the guy who picks up the phone, you're talking to Blue Horseshoe, you're immediately going to buy some of the stock that you. But if you have this power to turn around and just cause a stock to rise by 10% because you're telling your buddy over the finance desk something, like nobody in finance has that degree of power. Now, there's some people in Washington D.C. that have that degree of power, the Fed chairman and people like that. But there's no journalist at some fictitious Wall Street newspaper that has that degree of power to cause those swings.
For sure. That's why I bring up Kramer, because he kind of could.
Yes,
Um, the way I
yeah,
the way I think about that is, this sort of behavior is, of course, crappy. I'm in the gambling community
sure.
for 3 decades. I see stuff like this on a lower scale, like, all the time. Uh, the most popular one is just people touting penny stocks or something that nobody's ever heard of,
Right.
and you know exactly what this is. these
When,
these
when
guys
when the
these guys
market
are the
cap
only one
is
that owns. Yeah, exactly.
right, the market cap is $150,000. So if somebody buys $10,000 worth of it, it actually moves, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
3 guys at the table who are touting this thing like it's, just the most amazing, they're the only 3 that own any of it, you know? It's just that small,
right.
almost. Um, but anyway, as far as this, manipulating stock prices with whatever it is, phone calls to Washington newspapers, TV shows, all the guys in the room, the brokerage room, just sort of influencing one another. All that underhanded, shady crap can happen in markets. And the best antidote for that is not the illusion that the SEC has got you covered. You need to be just aware as an investor that
But this
all is not necessarily as it seems, and reputational factors need to be considered. And I think markets will police, if they don't think that some other big government overlord is doing it for them. It makes people really lazy and gullible.
and I want people to be I think it'd be useful if, yeah, this is where something like blockchain could genuinely be useful. And I want people to be able to make these sort of purchases and acquisitions anonymously if they want, but it would just carry different weight than if someone is, staking, publicly saying like, I'm out here buying, 100,000 shares of Corporation X, and you know who that person is, and as opposed to anonymous offshore accounts doing that sort of thing. I It seems like right now, especially when it comes to like politicians and things like that, like the Washington D.C., so long as we have a lot of political power in the country, that becomes a bit murky, and now there's talk of this, outlawing congressmen or congresspeople and their families from trading stocks. But I mean, that's where you go back to Larry the Liquidator. He's like, you can make all the laws you want.
We'll
We
just get
adapt.
around it. Yeah, you can't
Yes,
imagine a way to
absolutely.
get around that. Pretty sure I can.
Yeah.
I mean, in Wall
Um,
Street, Charlie Sheen, Bud Fox is using a pal of his from college, who's a lawyer now. He's
yeah.
using his
Right.
account to hide Gekko's trades
Yes.
in. I mean, come on, people,
Yeah.
grow
You
up.
just give them 10, 20% of the gains. Like, yeah, there's going to be lots of people. You can find neighbors. You can
Of
flip
course,
through the phone book. You're going to find random people with no
of
connection to.
course.
There's always going to be ways around it. So it's a silly. It's not that I oppose it. I just don't think it's a solution to anything. Um, and so I don't know. When it comes back to, purchasing stocks and like, the transparency of the market, I think would be useful. And I think in the right culture, people would frown upon doing these trades in a more anonymous manner. Um, but where we are now, you sort of have that illusion that the SEC is taking care of all that.
Right.
Um, and so, people play the game, and it comes with a bit of a cost, I think.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think now is a decent time to play the
Mm,
famous "Greed is Good" scene from Wall Street. This is Michael Douglas playing Gordon Gekko, delivering a speech to the annual stockholders meeting for Teldar Paper. And then I want to talk about Gordon Gekko and his philosophy. Here we go.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity you're giving me, Mr. Cromwell, as the single largest shareholder in Teldar Paper to speak. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're not here to indulge in fantasy, but in political and economic reality. America has become a second-rate power. Its trade deficit and its fiscal deficit are at nightmare proportions. Now, in the days of the free market, when our country was a top industrial power, there was accountability to the stockholder. The Carnegies, the Mellons, the men that built this great industrial empire made sure of it because it was their money at stake. Today, management has no stake in the company. Altogether, these men sitting up here own less than 3% of the company. And where does Mr. Cromwell put his $1 million salary? Not in Teldar stock. He owns less than 1%. You own the company. That's right. You, the stockholder, and you are all being royally screwed over by these bureaucrats with their steak lunches, their hunting and fishing trips, their corporate jets and golden parachutes.
This is an outrage. You're out of line, Gekko.
Teldar Paper, Mr. Cromwell, Teldar Paper has 33 different vice presidents, each earning over $200,000 a year. Now, I have spent the last 2 months analyzing what all these guys do, and I still can't figure it out. One thing I do know is that our paper company lost $110 million last year, and I'll bet that half of that was spent in all the paperwork going back and forth between all these vice presidents. The new law of evolution in corporate America seems to be survival of the unfittest. Well, in my book, you either do it right or you get eliminated. In the last 7 deals that I've been involved with, there were 2.5 million stockholders who have made a pre-tax profit of $12 billion. Thank you. I am not a destroyer of companies. I am a liberator of them. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all of its forms. Greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind, and greed, you mark my words, will not only save Teldar Paper, but that other malfunctioning corporation called the USA. Thank you very much.
I think that's a great speech. And I think Oliver Stone makes it clear throughout this film, especially at the end, that Gordon Gekko doesn't mean a word of it. Because when Bud Fox helps him take over his father's company, the airline, Blue Star Airline, where his father is is a mechanic who has risen to the ranks of being the union leader for the mechanics union there. And then Gekko, who thinks tells Bud that he's going to make him president and help him run the airline and it'll be a long-term profitable thing. And instead he just changes his mind and decides to sell it all off for parts. So Bud goes and chases him up. So what are you doing? You lied to me. And the speech Gekko delivers there could have been written by a blue-haired Marxist graduate student. He says literally that business is a zero-sum game.
Yep.
It is just disgusting and awful. And I think, like Oliver Stone is basically a lefty, or for sure he was at this time. And, he's been watching the news of all these greedy corporate raiders are doing all these things. And so he's telling a story of an evil man, Gekko, satanically tempting this young, pure, idealistic guy. Maybe he's not so pure. Charlie Sheen, Bud Fox, and then Bud gets redemption at the end and goes to jail and collects evidence for the feds to prosecute Gekko for SEC violations, if nothing else. And that's the story he wanted to tell. So let's get into this movie. Did you like it? I have my own thoughts. I did like it. I do like
it. I guess my problem is I watched Other People's Money first.
Yeah.
Or I believe that I saw Wall Street years back, but more within this past week. And this doesn't hold a flame to Other People's Money. I think in that scene is good. You're right to zero in on that. When he says that business is a zero-sum game, none of these corporate raiders would ever
no.
He loses his character there. He does not understand the people. And so Oliver Stone, his dad, worked on Wall Street for like 40 years. He was a stockbroker. Yeah. And so that's where a lot of this came from. And his dad died of cancer like a few years before this. And so you can see a lot of that in like the Martin Sheen, Charlie Sheen thing going on. And it seems like this is almost like a punch back at he and his dad had sort of a tumultuous relationship. And so it seems like this is a very emotional movie. It's a very fantastical movie in a lot of ways. I feel like it misidentified the problem. I think it identified insider trading as sort of being the problem. More than anything else, and the solution being like, oh, we just need like better regulators. It seems to be the implication. I think that Gekko gets unfathomably stupid in the last 15 minutes of the movie, that allows him to get got by Bud Fox in ways that,
Oh
like,
yeah, he would never do that. That's crazy.
no, right? The movie gets set up by him, like, he has someone like figure out that Bud Fox's dad is like the union rep at Blue Star, and that's how he got this inside information. But then Gordon Gekko doesn't know that Charlie Sheen has been picked up by the feds in his office in front of like 100 of his coworkers. How do you not know this? And then you're going up to him, supposedly implicating yourself. I don't know if anything he said actually implicated himself there. Didn't seem like it when he's like beating him up in the middle of the park.
They
Um,
have him taking the steps to be ensured that no one's listening to go to the middle of Central Park, but then conveniently forget there's such a thing as a tape recorder or a wire.
right. Yeah. And he knows that Bud found out that he's planning to sell this thing for parts, but he's still taken by surprise when Bud is turned against me. Oh, I can't believe that. Like, I don't know. That frustrates me. If I want, it'd be easier for me to enjoy this movie if Gecko was a, a capable individual, or if Bud was a capable individual. But they all seem just like they're cartoonishly evil, they're cartoonishly naive or ambitious. Or in Martin Sheen's character, he's just like the moral compass of the universe, sort of thing. And I think that they're all too simplistic, especially for something as rife with complexity as Wall Street is, and what they're doing, where from one angle, from Martin Sheen's perspective, this is terrible. You're selling us off for parts. But from a more reasonable perspective, for more global perspective, this is a necessary, like, it's reasonable, and I don't know if it's necessary, but it's certainly a net good, I think.
Oh yeah,
Um, and so, especially since like they don't seem to address the in either of them, like, just because these parts get sold off doesn't mean the jobs disappear. You may
right,
change employers, but that
right.
capital still needs to operate, and it needs
Planes are still
people
gonna
to
fly
operate.
somewhere. Yeah,
Right. It's unlikely. It's possible that the factory just like gets turned into a farm field, like Larry mentions, but someone's still gonna need to replace the or repair the airplanes, no matter what the logo is painted on the side of them, sort of thing. So I don't know. It's that sentimentality side of it, and I don't think that Wall Street necessarily does a good job of articulating the sentimental side of this equation either. They just sort of be like, "Ooh, the corporate raider side very bad," but they don't go into. Yeah, they do have the Martin Sheen thing, but I don't think they articulate it necessarily well. You're just sort of supposed to take it at face value that he's right, and I don't think he does a good job of expressing why or how.
yeah. They make his father the salt of the earth, the working man, and that's just unambiguously good. And okay, it is unambiguously good, but yeah, they are painting everything that goes on at Wall Street as corrupt or greedy or shady. And yet, it made me change my major or rethink the way I was going to head into college. I think Wall Street is a better made movie. It
Uh,
looks better.
oh yeah,
It's directed better, cinematography. The acting is really, really, really good. Um, but yeah, I still put it at least two rungs below Other People's Money, which
I,
is a worse made movie
yes, yes, right,
because
absolutely. I don't know what his budget was, but its budget was probably less than well, probably maybe a quarter of what Wall Street spent,
yeah,
and we're not even looking at like the talent that they hired. But I think that it comes down to the scripts and the people who wrote the scripts having good understanding of the universe and all the factors that go into it. The universe of merger and acquisitions, things along the subject matter that are dealing with. But I think they do like the characters also. So uh, it's that glitz, right? It's like the whole Avatar thing. They make tons of money. They look great, but I don't know.
nothing
It's
in it.
like, yeah, it's empty calories in a way.
Well, let me set up the contrast. Why, like in Wall Street, you've got Bud Fox, Charlie Sheen, as this main protagonist, and he is drawn to the allure of he doesn't want to be a working stiff like his dad. He thinks his dad's a failure. He wants the allure of easy money and power. And he thinks Gordon Gekko's the greatest guy in the world, and so that's the main tension of the movie. There's also a girlfriend because I'm tempting you not only with money, but like everything that comes with this amazing, very shallow uh, Daryl Hannah, a
Yeah.
girlfriend character who's basically owned by Gekko and just lent
It is.
out to Bud Fox. And they had to show the scenes where he's buying his big Upper East Side apartment and decorating it all this 80s kitsch and making your own sushi rolls or whatever
Yeah.
while the Talking Heads, one of my favorite songs ever, is playing. So like it's a well done movie and they paint all that up very nicely, but it doesn't stand. What other people's money gives you is Gregory Peck, just a
Yep.
fabulous actor,
Mhm.
portraying the as the CEO of this dying uh, wire and cable business, and he portrays American grit and hard work, and we're here to build something. Gosh darn it, he does that really, really well.
It it's
And
stubborn sentimentality on his
yes,
part, and he
but in
like
such an American
yes.
way, it's
Yes.
beautiful. And
Well,
then he's
we moved from this agrarian ideal to an industrial ideal,
right,
and he embodies it just perfectly.
beautifully. You know, Northeast, Rhode Island, Americana.
Yep.
And then in opposition to him is this guy who looks like a troll.
Mhm.
Cue Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference. Um, who's like Gekko 4 years later, if he was a little bit more evil and insipid and loved donuts, a little bit more of a
Yeah.
caricature. And
It
yet, when you get to the end, one of these entities is about uh, uh, doing good in the economy, not just throwing the money away. And the other is blind entrepreneurially. Doesn't, to reference a scene we're about to play, he's the last buggy whip manufacturer in America after the automobile has been invented, and he just can't see it. And he's wasting tens of millions of dollars because of that. And I just thought those two things were portrayed so well, especially since for the first half of the movie, they're really trying to make Larry the Liquidator just look like a pig.
yeah,
And the switcheroo, even though it's not rapid, it's slow. I really appreciate it.
and I liked so they take a long time to get Larry into the office.
Yeah.
I was surprised, like, watching him take this, like, long journey to get there, but then I finally understood it when the moment he gets there, he, like, starts to explain, like, the valuation process for a company, and obviously it's greatly simplified.
Yeah.
Um, but, like, you don't wanna open up your movie in the first 2 or 3 minutes with, like, a lecture on how to proper evaluate the value of a corporation sort of thing. So I understand them sort of taking their time to get there. It was a bit of a pacing thing, but they reveal and his characters done so well, like, these subtle little moments when I think especially when I think her name's B, she's sort of the secretary lady,
Mhm.
um, when she comes to his office and she
Oh,
offers
that's the wife. That's
Georgie's wife.
yeah, Jorgie's wife.
Yeah. And she offers him her trust to just walk away from it sort of thing. And you can see that there's a moment in there where Larry is wondering if, like, he's doing it's hard for him to do this thing. He's not gleeful in doing it, it seems, but it seems like he's doing it because he almost knows it's the right thing as well. Um,
Yeah, his line is, "I don't take money from widows or orphans. I make money for widows and orphans." But he is impressed by the incredible move. This lady comes from Rhode Island, this tiny little town, comes all the way to Manhattan, waits in front of his office for God knows how many hours,
yeah.
trying to give him her last $1 million or only $1 million in order to try and save this community that obviously you're going to love if you have any heart at all.
Yeah.
You don't want all your employees to have to go rediscover some other way to make money, and he sees that, he's touched by that.
You get to see his loneliness.
Yeah.
I think that moment when I don't remember why he's so I think he feels like he's totally so yeah, there's a whole romance subplot in the middle of all this, right? That he has with the opposing lawyer, more or less, Kate, who's the stepdaughter of the CEO,
Jorking.
the current,
Yep.
yes, of Gregory Peck's character. Kate is her name, and they develop a bit of a relationship throughout it. Um, and I wish I
Again.
were.
Again.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, well,
Um,
he's alone. He thinks he's gonna be alone before and
right.
after this whole thing, yeah.
And his help comes in. His driver comes in as he's just like laying miserably on his bed, and his driver's like, "Can I get you some soup, boss?" And he's like, "No." And they play sort of for comedy, but yeah, he's so miserable. And you can that's where someone who loves you should come in and try and support you, but he's got nobody. Um, and I can kind of see, especially, I think casting Danny DeVito was a brilliant choice for this role,
Oh, yeah.
because I think that it's easy to see how some puny little kid in middle school who'd get beat up all the time, because
Yeah.
even in seventh grade he was only 4 feet tall, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And just super awkward. So he escaped into some weird hobby that eventually led itself into him being a successful corporate raider. And you can be, even though he's worth, however much, right? He's certainly super wealthy, but he's also has a unique stature, we'll say, and he's bald. He's unattractive by most metrics. And so the this question of like, why is this super wealthy guy alone, kind of answers itself. And also you can kind of see how he got there. And he says like, yeah, not too bad for a boy from the Bronx, which there's a bit of a self-insert for the guy who wrote this in the first place. It was originally a play,
Yeah.
written by a guy who didn't have a play produced until he was 52 years old. He
Oh,
was
wow.
he was a very late bloomer. Yeah, but he did work in the industry for quite a while. He did work for corporations that did mergers and acquisitions, and so I think that's where like the brains for this script came from. Is he'd actually seen all the sides, how these pieces come together and how they
Well, what's
operate.
interesting is I'm glad you said that, because unlike Wall Street, the script
Mhm.
doesn't try to throw around a bunch of Wall Street lingo,
Yeah.
but when they do mention whatever they mention, it's perfectly correct.
Mhm.
They get it all right, including Kate trying desperately to get Gregory Peck, Georgie, to lever up the company with debt. And, what are you
Right.
doing holding all this cash? Well, that's for our rainy day fund. And, she's trying to help fix it so that a raider can't take over.
Well, and you also have that period where she's imploring them to move the uh move it like for
Oh, yeah.
jurisdictional
Yeah.
where it's incorporated
Yeah.
from Rhode Island to Delaware, because Delaware has it's sort of infamous for its corporate law that they have in place. And yeah, he's very dismissive of it. But I do like, because there's those, both of these movies, I think they don't ignore the aspect of government, but they don't fixate on it either, right? In,
Right.
in Wall Street, it's mostly done through the SEC. That's it. They're mostly absent, and I think that that's very conscious. Like I think Oliver Stone wants to give this impression that SEC is just asleep at the wheel,
Right.
and all these insider traders are running amok. In other people's money, you have that little moment of like this jurisdictional move, right? We just need to hop across the border over to Delaware, and we'll be securing ourselves, sort of thing. Also, with the temporary restraining order that she's able to secure against Larry, because they one of his lawyers didn't dot an I or cross a T, sort of thing, so they didn't like disclose something about a 13D, whatever. And so because of that, he was prevented from scooping up more stock for a period of time. He was just sort of put on pause, and that's where that whole speech of like, yeah, you can make all the laws you want. We're just going to adapt. We're going to figure out a way to work around them, sort of thing. Um,
And if we don't, if we're not
yeah.
able to, by the way, you've just made this
Yes.
principal agent owner, principal agent problem that much worse. So
Yes.
the little people of the country are just going to get reamed by by the management teams.
Yep.
Yeah, in the late '80s, early '90s, a whole bunch of changes were made. Some tax stuff at the federal level, a whole bunch of state law was changed, and then a bunch of judicial decisions, most spectacularly in Delaware, made made trying to take over a company, if you think it's being run poorly, just almost impossible. Not completely impossible, but almost impossible. And yeah, it's bad. It's not a good thing. You've made the self-regulation of a market just that much more crippled.
This almost certainly like puts just a spectacular amount of power into the hands of just like perhaps a half dozen specific judges
Yeah,
that work that beat at the state level in Delaware. Like there can't
yeah,
be that many, but they must have just insane levels of power. And most famously right now is the whole it's Tesla, right?
yeah.
The
Tesla and Elon. Yeah,
right, where a judge is just making these wild decisions. Like why on earth our system's so broken, and that's just one of the many ways. But the, certainly over the past, what would be 10, 11 months now, we've just seen some wild power on the part of district judges being able to just make decisions for the entire country out of these tiny little jurisdictions. It's baffling and frustrating.
it is. The white pill therein is the fact that in the last 5-10 years, you have seen a whole lot of new developments, a shaking of the box, both out of the Supreme Court, and then just spotlights being shown on just how much power across the entire nation these tiny little federal judges wield. And more people are starting to scratch their head going, can that really be our system? Is that really? And also a lot of people are now more aware that regulations just aren't always beneficial. Sometimes the cronies actually write them. So let's get back to other people's money. We showed you
Mm.
great actor Michael Douglas, and Gordon Gekko delivers a great speech. And here is the mirror scene in Other People's Money. It's a stockholders meeting being held in the factory up in Rhode Island, New England Wire and Cable. Yeah. And so the CEO, Gregory Peck, has just delivered the speech that's just magnificent. You know, who are we? Are we a country that the economy is just moving papers around and producing nothing? Or are we a country that makes things? And how ridiculous is it to destroy an entire company just because at this tiny moment it happens to be worth more dead than it is alive? That'll change. We're responsible for the technology that's the infrastructure of this great country. And what are you talking about, you short-sighted fools? Obviously vote for my slate of directors, and let's not pay attention to this little troll. Pay no attention to this little troll. And then they hand the mic off to Larry the Liquidator, Danny DeVito, and here's what he has to say. Unless you have more to say to preface this scene,
No.
Charles.
Not at all.
All right, let's let her rip.
Amen. And amen. And amen. You have to forgive me, I'm not familiar with the local custom. Where I come from, you always say amen after you hear a prayer. Because that's what you just heard. A prayer. Where I come from, that particular prayer is called the prayer for the dead. You just heard the prayer for the dead, my fellow stockholders, and you didn't say amen. This company is dead. I didn't kill it. Don't blame me. It was dead when I got here. It's too late for prayers. For even if the prayers were answered and a miracle occurred, and the yen did this and the dollar did that and the infrastructure did the other thing, we would still be dead. You know why? Fiber optics. new technologies, obsolescence. We're dead, all right. We're just not broke. And do you know the surest way to go broke? Keep getting an increasing share of a shrinking market. Down the tubes. Slow but sure. You know, at one time there must have been dozens of companies making buggy whips. And I'll bet the last company around was the one that made the best goddamn buggy whip you ever saw. Now, how would you have liked to have been a stockholder in that company? You invested in a business, and this business is dead. Let's have the intelligence, let's have the decency to sign the death certificate, collect the insurance, and invest in something with a future. Ah, but we can't, goes the prayer. We can't because we have a responsibility. A responsibility to our employees, to our community. What will happen to them? I got 2 words for that. Who cares? Care about them? Why? They didn't care about you. They sucked you dry. You have no responsibility to them. For the last 10 years, this company bled your money. Did this community ever say, we know times are tough? We'll lower taxes, reduce water and sewer. Check it out. You're paying twice what you did 10 years ago. And our devoted employees, who have taken no increases for the past 3 years, are still making twice what they made 10 years ago. And our stock, 1/6 what it was 10 years ago. Who cares? I'll tell you. Me. I'm not your best friend. I'm your only friend. I don't make anything. I'm making you money. And lest we forget, that's the only reason any of you became stockholders in the first place. You want to make money. You don't care if they manufacture wire and cable, fried chicken, or grow tangerines. You want to make money. I'm the only friend you've got. I'm making you money. Take the money. Invest it somewhere else. Maybe you'll get lucky and it'll be used productively. And if it is, you'll create new jobs and provide a service for the economy. And God forbid, even make a few bucks for yourselves. And if anybody asks, tell them you gave it the plant. And by the way, it pleases me that I'm called Larry the Liquidator. You know why, fellow stockholders? Because at my funeral, you'll leave with a smile on your face and a few bucks in your pocket. Now that's a funeral worth having.
Yeah, great speech, man.
So much better than the Gekko speech, I think.
Right? It is.
But
It totally is.
In terms of articulating complex economic ideas in a very tangible, layman-friendly way is so good.
But even better, it's not cartoonish. Like in
No.
Wall Street, the CEO looks like a little criminal, like a little crony bureaucrat who's sucking those stockholders dry.
Isn't it weird that Danny DeVito's less cartoonish than
Right?
Michael Douglas? Yeah. Like,
No, I mean the CEO. I mean, in contradistinction, here we have
yes.
Gregory freaking Peck, who delivers he's a mountain of a man, and he's again pure Americana, hardworking, ethic,
Mr.
values.
Smith Goes to Washington.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I had a friend in college when this movie came out, and we discussed it, and we were talking about the movie afterwards, and he said he was totally on Gregory Peck's side the whole way through, all the way to the end. And so I laid out what we've been discussing here, how these resources are just misallocated and the management is, stodgy, and these things have to be broken. They have to be. Otherwise, you're just pouring money away. And he just smiled and he said to me, yeah, but if that guy has to be wrong, then who the heck wants to be right? I was like, well, okay. Me. I'm
Well,
on I'm on Danny DeVito's side.
and that's what we're up against, right?
Right?
And Danny, like, I don't know anybody who could do a better job than Danny DeVito did. Like, for as many times as Rothbard and Mises have tried, he does a phenomenal job there of, articulating creative destruction and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
liquidation is sometimes the rational choice, and uh, he, I mean, what they don't really get into, it's sort of implied, is this the concentrated benefits and dispersed costs problem. That's so like all the concentrated benefits are in that room, but the dispersed costs are all across the economy. If you let these zombie corporations just linger. And one thing that he mentions really early on is the fact that there's multiple aspects and divisions to this company.
Yeah.
It just so happens that this one factory is just a millstone around its neck. And if they can just sort of like jettison this factory from the rest of the organization, like the rest of it can be sold off and is very productive, but this specific chunk of it is not.
Or
And
the rest can be left alone and it's very productive.
yes.
It's like
It,
this was the engine several decades ago. And
yes.
while it was a healthy
It
company, they bought other divisions that are
it made other
separate.
things possible,
And those do
absolutely.
work. But this thing now that used to be the heart and the engine is just a millstone around its neck, an albatross, and it's killing it.
But this factory only came into existence in the first place because they bulldozed some pear orchard that used to be there, and
Right.
well, it's this is a cycle that this specific plot of land has encountered multiple times before. If it's on a waterfront, maybe it was there's so many things that it has been in the past, but now it's just not serving its highest value, and that's probably true for the people in the room as well. And they like, you see there's that little moment where Gregory Peck's like leaving the office well after dark, and he passes one of the workmen who's still there super late, and I think he calls him by name. They just I understand why your friend is on Gregory Peck's side right through the end. I
I
get
get
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame, I was on Walter White's side right through the end of it. But in this case, Larry won me over. I mean, easily. We have very odd lenses through which we view the world, um, to be sure. But I, I once you understand like the need for creative destruction, um, I don't know how this could really be denied. The one moment in this speech that I do have a issue with is when he's talking. Well, okay, it's good and bad. When he says, "Well, what about the employees? Who cares?" I think he understands that that's a bit more abrasive than he needs to be. He's going to lose a couple votes by being that aggressive about it. Until he mentions the fact, like, he does a great job of explaining it. They've been
Yeah.
getting paid better than they should have been paid
Yeah.
for a while now, and the stock is 1/6 what it used to be.
Hmm.
That's I mean, how did they get this far?
Yeah, if I were rewriting the script, I would have made the employees' wages not doubled over the last 10 years, maybe 1.5x.
Right.
And I can't imagine that it could have gone down to 1/6 of its former price in just 10 years. I would have made it a little more believable, but
You would think, and I like the Gregory Peck would have to be just paralyzed with sentimentality for him to not fire any employees if they've lost that much, or I mean, if their overhead has increased that much, or if their revenue has fallen that much. Like, how on earth do you have all those same employees there? Like, that's outright, or be paying them so much more at the same time that your stock has plummeted.
well,
That's
we can't get rid of Brad.
right.
He's just had his sixth baby boy, and what are you talking about? So yeah, I love this movie. I like it better than the much more polished Oliver Stone directed Wall Street. But there is one thing that I don't like, and I know why the director did it. I know why the writer did it. But I don't like the uh, the bailout that the concept gets at the end,
Yeah.
where the Japanese come in and save everybody's jobs because they're going to come in and manufacture this new thing that's being mandated by the government, don't you know? Airbags for automobiles by made in factories like this with teeny tiny wires and cables. And so everybody gets to save their job in the end. And I don't know how exactly I would have brought the plane down for a landing, especially
Right.
since they want to keep the cat and mouse game between Larry and Kate, still a romantic comedy. This thing is billed as a romantic comedy rather than a drama. It's pretty interesting. So yeah, there's that little bit of here you go, a little fellows from God above that I didn't. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
That's one of the biggest deviations between this and the play. The play, there's no soft landing. It
Oh,
just
I didn't know that.
crashes. Yeah.
I didn't know that. What
Yeah.
do you know? Can you give me the last few lines or the general?
I don't know if there's anything after the company gets sold off. I think it just gets sold off and that's
Or maybe
over and done with.
or maybe she reads the vote and then they just drop the curtain.
Yeah, apparently the vote is like predetermined. I was thinking, like, before I learned that, I was thinking that like it'd be interesting to deliver the speech like to the audience, act as though the audience
Yeah, like
were the
a
shareholders.
like an Ayn Rand play or something where you're getting the audience involved and
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
You could have a few plants from the first act in there, like booing Larry at times and
that'd
cheering
be fun.
for
Yeah,
yeah, for Georgie. To sort of give the audience members license to do the same, sort of like get in on the show. Um, but there's no soft landing, and that's one of the changes that the director for the movie made. And apparently,
interesting.
it's a fairly accomplished director, the guy who did in the Heat of the Night. It's that guy, which I'm not familiar with him necessarily, but at that time he was sort of peaking, and so when he got interested in this project with the play, it was an off Broadway play that was far more successful than off Broadway plays typically have reas- uh, any right to be. Um, and so yeah, it was dour. It was in there the romance aspect of it is very minimal compared to what we get in
So
the movie.
these are studio changes, one would have to
Yes.
imagine. Yeah.
Understandably so. For
Yeah,
it I don't know if it was a commercial success, I didn't even look into that.
I don't
Um,
think so. No.
but I think if it just ended with, the company getting sold off and there not being like this, "Ooh, like, Kate and Larry are still gonna work it out," because for me, like, the big question is, like, if Larry's gonna, because Larry's broken and sad, and a lot of it
Yeah. Yeah.
is he's desperate for Kate. That moment, when he goes and he proposes to her, that was such a great moment
It was.
when
I
she's
gotta
like
ask you
getting ready to
now.
go off. Yes.
I knew you're going on a date to the opera. Well, I gotta ask you this now because after tomorrow or whenever it is,
Mhm.
you're not gonna be too happy with me.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
First off, it makes Larry just an absolute boss for making that sort of move. I mean, he that's kind of how he lives, right? He usually doesn't second guess himself all that much. Um, but yeah, for him to be that aware and that assertive and to that desperate also, I think you see the desperation in him to find love, and this is a very rare shot that he has at it. Um,
Yeah, and it underscores the point I made as I was oohing and ahhing over the big kahuna with Bob Murphy. But Danny DeVito's a great actor. Um, he's
he
also
is
tremendous in The War of the Roses, even though it's a smaller part. Um, he's just great in everything. Under Underappreciated, I say.
certainly. I'm thrilled that he's had as much success with It's Always Sunny as he
Yeah,
has.
yeah, for sure.
Um, just such a remarkable, unlikely fit that just parts being greater or the sum being greater than the parts. Um, so
He's been
uh,
around forever. I mean, Taxi was in the 70s, right?
yeah,
And he was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in the 60s?
yeah. And there was some role where he learned to play violin for that role.
Yeah, he was
And then
clearly playing the violin in this movie.
yes,
Clearly.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess he got good enough at it that he's used that talent a few times, and this just happened to be one of them. And yeah, that moment where he was playing for her on the phone, it,
It's cute.
yeah.
Very cute. All right. Well, we're about at the normal time for these things. You got any other pearls of wisdom about these two films, or the market for corporate control, or Wall Street, or government, or anything else?
Um, no, I guess I agree with Larry. All the companies should just be liquidated and make room for creative destruction.
All of them.
I mean, certainly we're in flux right now, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
for as much as Japan and the rest of the industrialized world getting its legs back under them, shifted the earth out from underneath the American manufacturing base in the 80s. With what's happening with AI right now, I can't imagine. First off, with and I can't imagine how because the New England wire and cable, right? If this was happening in 2025, they'd be like, okay, obviously we need to transition into AI, right? It doesn't matter what company it is, right? You're going to try and transition into that because that's where the money is right now. But it also seems like it's wildly overpriced right now.
Oh,
There's
I'm so glad you. Yeah, forget overpriced. But like these two movies are talking about how much capital, the
yes,
backbone of an economy, was being pissed away by Teldar Paper or
hmm
New England Wire and Cable. Well, good Lord, how many trillions is it now are being pissed away in this pursuit of AI? Like something positive is going to come from it, I'm sure, but in order to make a profit on top of all of this money and time and talent, I don't think so.
no, and I mean, there's it's transformational what's happening in technology right now, but we don't know how it's going to impact and what markets it's going to impact. But right now, there's a lot of buggy whip manufacturers out there right now, and they just don't realize it. They're not going to, but those Larry the liquidators out there who are able to anticipate what's happening in the market and can move early on them to make way for um, more efficient use of that capital. Um, they're a net benefit to all of us, and we should be thankful that they're out there.
Yeah, we should. And we should also tear down the impediments
Yeah.
for their behavior because although smart people are trying to um, get creative, trying to align the interests of management and the owners, you really do need people to be able to come in from the outside and fix it too. It can't only be an internal process, or it's going to be a very weak and ineffective one.
Yeah, our closeness to an issue or a company, right? That sentimentality can
Yeah.
and nostalgia can really blind us to certain realities. And
Plus,
so,
it's the wolves in the hen house that can create all of these golden parachutes and poison pills, and
yeah,
so yeah. Anyway, Um, well, this was great, Charles. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, please go to YouTube and search for Haman Nature and put it in quotes and like and subscribe my channel so that I can monetize it so that I don't go broke and have to go back to playing poker. You don't want to see that. You don't want to
I
see
don't know.
me.
Maybe there's a better application for your personal human capital. This
Let
is
me
this this is
let me go
misspent.
cue Gregory Peck, get him out here and give a speech.
I'm not going to listen. Not for a minute.
Yes, you will. He was in To Kill a Mockingbird, for crying out loud.
Oh,
All right, buddy, this was awesome. Thanks much. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you next time on Haman Nature.